I want to take you to a laboratory in Corning, New York, in the early 1950s. A young chemist named Donald Stookey is heating a small plate of special glass in a furnace, and the furnace breaks. The dial that should read 600 degrees climbs to 900, and he is sure he has ruined both the glass and the oven. But when he opens the door, the plate has not melted into a puddle. It has turned a milky, cloudy white. And when he reaches in with a pair of tongs to pull it out, the tongs slip. The plate drops to the hard laboratory floor, and it does not shatter, it bounces. It rings against the concrete like a piece of dropped steel. What Dr. Stookey discovered by accident that day was a brand new material. Not quite glass, not quite ceramic, something that could be frozen solid, then set directly over an open flame and never crack. The government put it in the nose cones of guided missiles because it was strong enough for the Cold War and it let radar signals pass straight through. Pieces of it flew on the space shuttle. And then Corning did something wonderful with it. They made it into casserole dishes. They called it CorningWare. And it went into almost every kitchen in America. Which means the same space-age material they trusted on a missile is very likely sitting in the cabinet under your counter right now, holding the memory of 1,000 Sunday suppers. So come and sit with me a while. Because today, you and I are going to count down 15 kinds of vintage Corningware that can be quietly worth real money. And I'm going to be honest with you the whole way down. Most of these dishes are worth a modest sum, and I will tell you plainly every single time that is true. But a rare few, in the right pattern, in the right shape, with the right lid, are the kind of thing a knowing buyer will carry to their car with a very quiet smile. Before we start, let me give you the one test that matters more than any pattern on this list. Take any Corningware dish and hold it up toward a bright window or a lamp. The old, valuable material, the one called Pyroceram, lets a faint, soft glow pass through its thinnest edges, and it feels smooth and glassy inside. The newer lookalike is dead opaque, no light, and if the bottom of the dish says the words, "not for stovetop," then it is not the old material at all. Keep that test in your pocket. We will use it more than once. Let us begin the countdown at number 15. Number 15. Blue cornflower. The one you already know. Picture it. A clean white dish with 3 simple blue cornflowers on the side. If your mother owned Corningware, she owned this. It was the very first pattern, launched in 1958, and Corning made it for 30 years, which means it is, by a wide margin, the most common Corningware on Earth. So let me be honest right away. Most blue cornflower sells for $5 to $30, and a complete matching set with good lids might reach $100. That is the truth, and I will not dress it up. But here is the small secret hiding in the common one. Turn it over and read the base. On the oldest, most desirable pieces, the name is stamped as 2 separate words. Corning, space, ware. On the later, ordinary stuff, it is crushed together into one word. The earliest dishes also had small, dainty handles that the company later made bigger, so an early 2-word mark, small handles, and a complete boxed set. That is when even this everyday dish starts to be worth carrying home. Number 14. Floral bouquet. The quiet one that came in through the side door. This is a softer, prettier design. Large open blooms with little hints of blue and yellow at their hearts, in that hand-drawn 1970s style. And it has an unusual history. Corning first slipped it out in 1969 as a special gift line piece, then released it to the public around 1970 and quietly retired it by about 1975. A short life like that is exactly what collectors hunt, because it means fewer dishes were ever made. Here is a trick almost nobody knows. On the base, next to the model number, the gift line patterns often carry a little pattern number. Learn to spot it, and you can date a piece and separate the sleeper from the ordinary. Floral bouquet is a true sleeper, common enough that people price it for pocket change, scarce enough that the right piece deserves better. Number 13. Nature's Bounty. Made for a single harvest. A pale dish covered in a cornucopia of autumn things. Fruit, wheat, the warm browns and golds of a 1970s Thanksgiving table. Most people would call it dated in a heartbeat. But Nature's Bounty was made in 1971, and essentially only 1971, 1 year. In a line where the flagship pattern ran for 3 decades, a single-season pattern is a genuinely scarce thing. On its own, a loose common piece is not a jackpot. Reportedly, the small pieces change hands for well under $50. But the larger forms and the complete match sets are the ones that have reportedly climbed toward $100 and beyond, precisely because so few survive the years without a chip or a fade. Number 12. Renaissance, the name that fools people twice. An ornate floral design produced for only about 2 years around 1970. A short run, which is good. But here is the honest warning, and it is a real one. There is also a very common Pyrex pattern with the exact same name, Renaissance, and people constantly confuse the two, pay for the rare one, and go home holding the common one. So flip the dish, confirm the base actually reads CorningWare and not Pyrex, and confirm the old Pyroceram material with your light test. The CorningWare Renaissance is the rarer prize. The Pyrex one is a lovely, ordinary bowl. Do not let a shared name empty your wallet. Number 11. Country Festival, the one the collectors call Friendship. Two little bluebirds facing each other, with a cheerful folk art tulip between them. It came out in 1975, and that friendly design is genuinely beloved. People adore it. And now I have to do the honest thing I promised you, even when it is not the fun thing. Beloved does not always mean valuable. Right now, individual country festival pieces often sell for just $5 to $15. I am telling you that on purpose, because there are videos out there that will quote you big numbers for this exact pattern, and I would rather you hear the plain truth from a friend at the kitchen table. The value here climbs mostly when you have a full, clean set with every lid. Sentiment and price are two different things, and knowing the difference is what protects you. Number 10. Pastel bouquet, and the trap almost every one of these has in common. Pastel bouquet is a soft, pretty 1980s design in gentle pinks and blues, but I am using it to tell you something that touches nearly every decorated dish on this whole list, and I want you to lean in for it. There is a story going around that old Corningware has arsenic baked into the ceramic. Let me set that straight, because the truth is both more useful and more important. The white body of the dish is generally not your concern. The concern is the colourful painted decoration on the outside. Independent testing, including the well-known work of Tamara Rubin, who tests consumer goods with the same X-ray equipment the Consumer Product Safety Commission uses, has repeatedly found high levels of lead, and sometimes cadmium, in those exterior painted patterns on vintage pieces. A tested Spice of Life casserole, for one reported example, came back many times over the limit that is considered safe for children. So here is the sensible, grown-up way to hold this. These beautiful old decorated dishes are wonderful to collect and to display. But the safest path is to treat the decorated vintage ones as things to show, not things to cook acidic food in or serve from day after day, especially if the paint is chipped or worn. Keep the chipped ones well away from little hands. If you want to know for certain, a simple home lead swab is a start, but proper testing is the honest answer. I am not a doctor, and this is not medical advice. It is just the careful thing a friend would tell you before you reheat tomorrow's leftovers. Number 9. The part nobody photographs. The handle, the little bowl, the skillet. Now I want to change how you look at this entirely. Everyone hunts the pattern. Almost nobody hunts the shape. And the shapes are where a lot of the quiet money lives. The respected antiques appraiser, Dr. Laurie Verderame, has a piece of advice I want to hand you directly. She says, never, ever pass up a Corningware detachable handle, that clever clamp that let one handle serve a whole cabinet of dishes. On its own, a single genuine handle reportedly sells for around $60 because so many were lost or broken. The same goes for the little individual grab-it bowls, the Browning skillets, the cradles, and the trivets. These odd, easily lost forms are far scarcer than the casseroles everyone kept, and they are worth real money to the collector trying to complete a set. So do not sweep the small, strange pieces into the donation box. Those are often the treasure. Number 8. Wildflower, and a date that trips up half the internet. Wildflower is a bold, cheerful spray of orange, yellow, blue, and green blossoms, unmistakably a child of its decade. Collectors love it, and it can command some of the higher prices in the whole Corningware world. But here is a correction worth money to you. You will hear people call this an early 1970s pattern, or even swear they have a 1950s Wildflower. They do not. Wildflower did not arrive until around 1977, and it ran to about 1984. So if a seller tells you their Wildflower is from the 50s or the early 70s, you have just caught either a mistake or a fib. and you know more than they do. Common pieces reportedly sell in the tens of dollars, but the larger casseroles, with their matching lids, in clean condition, are the ones that have reportedly reached into the hundreds and, in exceptional cases, been listed far higher. Condition and completeness are everything. Now, before we climb into the final 7, let me ask one small thing of you. If any of this is helping you look at your own kitchen with new eyes, please subscribe to American Tool Legends. Not for me. For the woman across town with a cabinet exactly like yours, who will never learn a word of this unless the numbers tell one of us to send it her way. And here is the most important thing I will say in this entire video, so please let it land. I am not a certified appraiser, and nothing I tell you here is a formal appraisal. Auction value, resale value, and insurance value are 3 different numbers for the very same dish. Please check with a certified appraiser and with your own state and local regulations before you buy, sell, insure, or ship anything you believe is valuable. And never test old dishes with acid, heat, or anything that could hurt you or the piece. The light test is safe. That is why it is the one I gave you. All right, let us climb toward number 1. Number 7. Blue heather. The one most collectors have only seen in photographs. Delicate bluish-purple flowers with soft, quiet leaves. It is gentle and easy to overlook, and it is genuinely rare. A limited design from around 1976 to 1977 that simply was not made in the numbers the famous patterns were. This is the one I would ask you to look at very, very closely if you ever see it in the wild. It hides in plain sight at estate sales because it is so soft and unshowy that no one gives it a second glance. If you turn over a dish and find those pale heather blue blooms, and the base confirms the old material and the 2-word mark, do not let that one go for $1. That is a pattern collectors chase for years. Number 6. The Medallion. The dish you could not buy in any store. Now here is one the other fellows never tell you about, and I love it. Picture an olive green, stenciled geometric design, interlocking lines forming a kind of medallion on the white body. Plain, almost severe. You would walk right past it. But that pattern was never sold in a shop. It was a gas station premium. Back when filling your tank came with a gift, you earned these dishes one at a time by pulling up to the pump, week after week. Because it skipped ordinary stores completely, far fewer were ever made than the patterns on the department store shelves. That makes the Medallion one of the hardest Corningware patterns to find today. If you remember your father collecting dishes at the Esso or the Texaco, go and look for this one. It carries a whole vanished piece of American life on its side. Number 5. Black Starburst. The atomic one. And another honest correction. A bold black starburst on brilliant white, the absolute soul of 1950s space-age style. It is one of the most sought-after Corningware looks there is, and it pulls 2 crowds at once, the Corningware collectors and the mid-century modern design lovers. Now, you may hear that Black Starburst was only ever made for Percolators, the old stovetop coffee pots. That is not quite right, and the difference matters. It was made from about 1959 to 1963, in both a black and a blue version, and it appeared on casserole dishes as well as on those percolators. Reportedly, a black Starburst casserole with its domed lid has changed hands for well over $100, and the complete coffee pots and exceptional pieces are chased harder still. So do not only look for the coffee pot, look for that atomic burst on anything at all. Number 4. The percolator itself. The space-age coffee pot. Let us stay with those percolators a moment, because they deserve their own place. For years, the Corningware stovetop and electric coffee pots poured the morning coffee in millions of American homes. And then, one by one, they were used up, chipped, replaced by the drip machine, and thrown away. Which is exactly why the survivors matter. Dr. Laurie Verderame names the percolator coffee pots, right alongside the detachable handles and browning skillets, as the Corningware forms you should never pass up. A clean, complete percolator, especially in a desirable pattern with all its inner parts, is far scarcer than any casserole because so few made it through the decades intact. If one is sitting on a shelf in the garage gathering dust, whatever you do, do not put it in the yard sale box for a quarter. Number 3. Visions. The dish you can see straight through. Here is another one people forget is part of the family. In the 1980s, Corning took that same magical Pyroceram and made it amber, a warm, see-through honey color. and sold it as Vision's cookware. Saucepans and Dutch ovens, you could actually watch the soup simmer inside. Most Visions is common and inexpensive, and I will not pretend otherwise. But certain forms, and the harder-to-find cranberry-coloured pieces, have a devoted following. And the right piece, in spotless condition, with its matching glass lid, reportedly does far better than the everyday saucepan. And because it is see-through, your light test is almost beside the point, but it proves the lesson beautifully. This is glass ceramic you can hold to the window and watch the daylight pour right through. That is the space-age material, right there in your hands. Number 2. The one with everything still in the box. This is not a single pattern, this is a principle, and it may be the most valuable thing I teach you today. The dishes that reach the serious money are almost never the loose, single casseroles. They are the complete sets. Every graduated size, every original glass lid, the metal cradle, the detachable handle, and, if the heavens are kind, the original printed box. A single dish is a dish, but a full, boxed, unfaded set in a desirable pattern tells a collector a whole story of care, and they will pay for the story as much as the china. So before you split up your mother's set to sell the pieces one at a time, stop. Keep it together. The set, whole, is worth more than the sum of its lonely parts. That is the quiet arithmetic the buyers know and hope you never learn. And now, number 1. Number 1. Spice of life. The pattern that broke the internet, and the one your grandmother almost certainly owned. You know it the moment you see it. Herbs and vegetables scattered across the white, mushrooms, garlic, a stalk of celery, and little words in French tucked underneath. On the pieces collectors prize most, you will find that French script, a small flame logo, and the words "Made in USA" on the base. It arrived around 1972, and it hung in kitchens all across this country for years. So why does a pattern this familiar sit at number 1? Because in the days right after the company that makes CorningWare filed for bankruptcy, back in the summer of 2023, a single Spice of Life casserole was listed online for $25,000. And that number went around the world. Millions of people tore open their cabinets overnight. Now, I promised you honesty all the way down, so here is the truth about that number. That was an asking price. A listing, not a sale. A comparable dish in that very pattern reportedly sold for less than a tenth of that. The respected appraiser Dr. Laurie Verderarm has said plainly that the $10,000 and $25,000 figures are simply not what anyone is actually paying. Most Spice of Life sells for around $20 to $30. And yet, the story underneath the hype is real. Genuinely rare Spice of Life forms, like the hard-to-find larger casseroles and pristine complete sets, have reportedly reached a couple of $1,000s at auction. The fortune is real. It is just far more specific and far more honest than a screenshot. And I will tell you the rule that separates the people who profit from the people who get their hearts broken. Never trust a price something is listed for. Only trust what a piece has actually sold for. An asking price is a wish. A sold price is the truth. So before you go, let me tell you why no one in the trade ever sat you down and taught you a word of this. It is not a secret. It is simply that your knowledge is worth nothing to them and everything to you. Think about it. The recipe for that space-age material stopped being anyone's private property long ago. You cannot patent a dish that was discontinued 40 years back. A pattern that Corning retired in 1975 cannot be repackaged and sold to you fresh again every spring, the way a new line of dinnerware can. And a stack of old casserole dishes has no place in a glossy evening auction catalogue beside the diamonds. So when an estate is cleared, your dishes are not studied one by one. They are swept into a single line, kitchen lot assorted, and sold in one breath, for a few dollars, to the one person in the room who already knows how to turn a dish over and read its base. The knowledge was never hidden from you. It was just never worth a single dollar to anyone, except you, standing at your own counter, holding your own dish. So now I would love to hear from you. And please be specific, because the woman scrolling past your comment may own the twin of what you describe. First, go and turn over your oldest CorningWare dish right now and tell me what the base says. 2 words or 1? Is there a flame logo, a pattern number, small handles or large? Type out exactly what you find and let us puzzle it out together. And second, let us have an honest disagreement. I want to know, do you still cook in your vintage CorningWare, Or has it become too precious, or after what we just learned about the painted ones, a little too worrying to use? And the bigger argument, those viral $25,000 listings, harmless fun that finally got people to look closely at their own kitchens? Or a small cruelty that sets ordinary sellers up for heartbreak? Tell me where you land. I would truly like to be argued with on this one. The free CorningWare blueprint is waiting for you in the description below. Every mark, every date, every safe home test, and every real source. All of it, no email required, so you can hold it in one hand and your dish in the other. And when you find the good one, take a breath before you do anything else. Because you are not just holding a casserole dish. You are holding a small piece of a lucky accident in a laboratory, a material that once rode a missile and flew a shuttle, and the warm, ordinary evenings of a family that ate 1,000 suppers out of it. Turn it over. Read what it says. And you will know something almost no one around you knows. I will be right here when you are ready for the next one.